Before we begin this epic tale of love, sacrifice, and shocking secrets, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more powerful African stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Obinna, a strong young farmer from Umudike village, worked tirelessly under the scorching sun. Each drop of sweat that fell from his brow watered the soil of his ambition. Though his young barns were not the biggest, his heart burned with a desire larger than the hills around his home. He longed for Adaeze, the daughter of Chief Okonkwo, the wealthiest man in the village. Adaeze was beautiful. Her eyes sparkled like fresh palm wine in the calabash. Her laughter carried like flute songs across the stream. But she was not for ordinary men. Her father demanded a bride price so high that even titled men trembled at the thought. Heads of goats, cows, kegs of palm wine, rolls of cloth, and heavy bags of cowries. Such was the mountain Obinna had to climb to win her. Though his brothers warned him, Obinna's love burned hotter than reason. "If I do not claim her, another will," he whispered each night as he gazed at the moon. And so, the ambitious farmer began to plan, unaware that the very path he walked was lined with shadows darker than the night forest. Obinna's mother, Mama Nena, noticed the change in his son. He no longer smiled as he returned from the farm. Instead, he sat in silence, counting cowries long into the night. One evening, she placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "My son, wealth is like the wind. It can scatter as quickly as it comes. Do not chase Adaeze's hand with everything you own. The gods may not bless such stubbornness." But Obinna's heart was deaf. Love had sharpened his ambition into iron. He sold half of his yam barns, leased a portion of his farmland, and even borrowed heavily from neighboring villages. When his brothers heard, they shouted in anger, "You will ruin us all. One woman is not worth the sweat of generations." Still, Obinna pressed on. At night, he dreamt of Adaeze smiling at him, calling his name in soft tones. Yet behind her smile lurked shadows, and her voice often echoed like the cry of a spirit. He woke in sweat, but brushed it aside as foolish imagination. What Obinna did not know was that in the shrine at the edge of the village, the chief priest had already seen a vision. He saw blood spilled over cowries, and a farmer kneeling in regret before the gods.
The weeks turned into months, and Obinna worked harder than ever. Each dawn found him in the fields before the cock crowed, and each dusk saw him still bent over his hoe. Villagers whispered about his madness. Some admired his determination. Others shook their heads, certain that ruin awaited. With every harvest, he sold his best yams and stored nothing for himself. His goats were traded for cloth, his chickens for wine. Even the ancestral land his father had left behind was sold to strangers. His mother wept silently at night, praying to the ancestors to save her son from blindness of the heart. Finally, when the last of the wealth had been gathered, Obinna's compound overflowed with riches. Cowries spilled like rivers, goats bleated restlessly, and jars of palm wine glistened in the sun. Surely, Obinna thought, Chief Okonkwo cannot refuse me now. But as the wealth piled up, strange things began to happen. Chickens died suddenly, goats refused to eat, and even the wind that blew through his compound carried an uneasy chill. Still, blinded by his passion, Obinna ignored the signs. He believed happiness was finally within reach. The day arrived, and Umudike village buzzed with excitement. The roads leading to Chief Okonkwo's compound were filled with villagers eager to witness the greatest bride price ever offered. Drums echoed, masquerades danced in dazzling colors, and women ululated as Obinna's wealth was paraded proudly. Chief Okonkwo sat upon his stool, his chest gleaming with beads, his face stern as he watched the endless stream of riches entering his compound.
His eyes betrayed no emotion, though his heart leapt with greed. When the final goat was tied and the last keg of palm wine placed before the chief, Obina stood pale. "I have come to claim Adaeze, the jewel of Omudike. Let no man say my love was weak." The villagers gasped at his boldness, and Chief Okonkwo finally smiled. "You have done well, farmer. Adaeze is yours." Adaeze stepped forward, her beauty glowing in the evening light. Yet, as she looked into Obina's eyes, a flicker of sadness passed across her face, so quick that only the gods themselves could have noticed. The wedding feast was unlike any other. Drums shook the earth, and masquerades whirled in dazzling colors. Meat and palm wine flowed without end, and villagers praised Obina's courage. To them, he was a man who had conquered the impossible.
Yet, amidst the laughter and joy, a strange silence lingered in Adaizi's heart. Though she danced beside her new husband, her eyes often wandered into the night, as though searching for something unseen. When Obina whispered of his joy, she only smiled faintly, her face unreadable. That night, when they retired to their hut, Obina felt both triumph and unease. He reached for Adaizi, but she pulled away, tears shining in her eyes. "Obina," she whispered, "you have given up everything for me, but you do not know the weight of what you have claimed." Confused, he held her close, but her body trembled as though haunted by spirits. Little did Obina know, the curse had already begun to weave its web around their marriage. Weeks passed, then months, yet Adaizi's womb remained silent. The women of the village whispered behind her back, mocking Obina for trading all his wealth for a barren wife. At first, Obina laughed off the whispers, convinced that time would bless them. But as the moons came and went, his heart grew heavy. He began visiting dibias, priests, and herbalists, each giving different potions and rituals, none bearing fruit. One evening, as the moon cast silver light upon their hut, Adaizi broke into sobs. "My husband," she cried, "there is a truth you must know. I am cursed. No child can come from my womb unless the wealth you gave is returned to the earth." Obina's heart stopped. "Cursed? What madness is this?" he shouted. But deep inside, the signs he had ignored all along began to fit together like cruel puzzle pieces. Desperate for answers, Obina went to the shrine of Ogugunike, the most feared priest in the land. The old man's eyes glowed like fireflies as he listened to Obina's plea. "You have bought a curse with your cowries," Ogugunike declared, his voice echoing through the shrine. Adaizi's womb was sealed long ago by the gods, for her father's greed angered them. Only when the riches you poured out are scattered, only when you return to poverty, can her womb open. Obina staggered back, his knees weak. To undo the curse meant to give up everything he had fought for. Could he bear such shame before the village? The priest's staff struck the ground, and thunder rumbled overhead. "Choose wisely, farmer. Love or pride, sacrifice or emptiness." Obina could not bring himself to let go of his pride. Each day, he avoided Adaizi's gaze, drowning his frustration in palm wine. Villagers mocked him openly, calling him the rich fool with no heir.
Adese, heartbroken, withdrew into silence. She spent her days by the stream, praying to the river goddess for mercy. But no answer came. Obina's mother confronted him. "My son, what is wealth without children? What is pride without joy? Listen to the priest. Save your marriage before the gods destroy you." But Obina clenched his fists. "I will not live in shame. I will find another way." Yet, even as he spoke, storms battered his fields, goats died mysteriously, and thieves raided his barns. His wealth, once so great, was crumbling before his very eyes. One night, as Obina returned from drinking, he overheard voices near the stream. To his horror, it was Adese, speaking softly with another man. Her voice trembled as she said, "I never wished for this curse to fall on him. He is a good man, but the gods are cruel." The man replied, "Adese, leave him. Come with me. The curse does not bind us if we run far away." Obena's heart shattered. Rage surged through him, but so did despair. The woman he had sacrificed everything for was slipping through his fingers like sand. The next day, Obena confronted Adese. "Do not lie to me. I heard you at the stream. You would abandon me after all I gave?" Adese fell to her knees, tears streaming. "Obena, I do not love him. I only spoke out of pain. I cannot watch you suffer for a curse I did not choose." Obena's fury turned to sorrow. He collapsed beside her, holding her tightly as his own tears fell. "Then what do we do, Adese? Must we live like this forever?" At that moment, the gods gave their answer in the form of a storm so fierce it tore the roofs from huts and uprooted trees. It was a sign. The curse would not wait much longer. After the storm, Obina sought answers from his late father's shrine. He poured palm wine upon the earth and called out to the ancestors. The wind howled through the compound, and suddenly a deep voice filled his ears. "Obina, son of Naje," the voice thundered, "you have traded your lineage for pride. Wealth can fill your barns, but it cannot fill the emptiness of your bloodline. Return what you gave, or your name will vanish like smoke."
Obina fell to his knees, trembling. He begged for another path, but the shrine fell silent. Adaeze, who had followed him quietly, wept. "Now you see, my husband, the gods themselves demand sacrifice. If you truly love me, you must let go of all you gained." But Obina's heart was torn. Love battled pride, and pride still held the sharper blade. The new yam festival approached, and the village brimmed with joy. Masquerades danced through the streets, and laughter filled the air. Yet Obina felt only dread. At the height of the festival, the chief priest announced a prophecy. "Among us stands a man whose pride curses his lineage. If he does not surrender, Umudike will suffer famine." All eyes turned to Obina. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some shouted for him to repent. Others mocked him for bringing doom. Adaeze clung to him, her eyes pleading. "Do not let our love destroy the village," she begged. But Obina's jaw tightened. "I will not be the laughingstock of Umudike," he muttered. The god's warning became the people's judgment, and soon even friends turned their backs on him. One moonless night, as Obina fetched water, a stranger appeared by the riverbank. The man's eyes glowed faintly, and his voice was smooth as silk. "I can free you from the curse," the stranger whispered. "No need to return your wealth. All I ask is a sacrifice, your wife's life in exchange for heirs." Obina's blood ran cold. The offer twisted his heart. Could he sacrifice Adaeze, the very woman for whom he had risked everything? The stranger vanished into the mist, leaving Obina shaken. That night he lay awake beside Adaeze, staring at her face as she slept. His heart battled temptation and love, and the weight of his choice pressed upon him like a grinding stone. Mama Nena, seeing her son's torment, fell ill from grief. Summoning her last strength, she called Obina to her bedside. "My son, wealth is nothing if it costs you love. Return the bride price. Set your spirit free before it is too late." Tears welled in Obina's eyes, but he shook his head. "Mother, I cannot. To undo it now would mean shame." She gripped his hand with surprising force. "Better shame than the wrath of the gods. Do not wait until they demand blood. Pride will bury you alive." That night, Mama Nenna passed away, and the wails of mourning shook the village. Obina's stubbornness had claimed its first victim.
Crushed by guilt and sorrow, Adaeze took matters into her own hands. One dawn, she went to the shrine and laid herself before the priest. "If my womb is cursed, then let the curse fall upon me alone. Spare Obina." The priest shook his head. "Child, you are innocent. It is your father's greed and your husband's pride that fuel this curse. Only Obina's choice can undo it." Adaeze wept bitterly. When she returned, she told Obina what the priest had said. "The burden is yours alone, my husband. I am ready to follow you even into emptiness, but I fear the gods will take more if you delay." Obina turned away, unable to face her tears, but his heart grew heavier with each word she spoke. The curse tightened its grip. Famine struck Obina's compound fast. Yams rotted in their barns, goats died without cause, and thieves plundered what little remained. The villagers whispered that the gods were punishing him. Children mocked him openly, chanting, "Rich man with empty arms, farmer with no heir." His pride, once a shield, now pierced him like a spear. One night, he awoke to find Adaeze coughing blood. Her skin burned with fever, and her body grew weak. The curse was now gnawing at her life itself. For the first time, Obina wept uncontrollably, realizing that the woman he fought for was slipping away. The gods had cornered him, and he could no longer run. Obina rushed to the shrine, carrying Adaeze in his arms. He fell before the priest, his face streaked with tears. "I will return it all, the wealth, the pride, the bands. I will scatter it before the gods. Just save her." The priest nodded gravely. "It will be done, but the offering must come from your own hands. Take your riches, one by one, and cast them into the sacred fire. Only then will the curse break." With trembling hands, Obina gathered his goats, his cowries, his fine clothes, and his kegs of palm wine. He threw them all into the fire as villagers watched in silence. Flames roared, devouring the wealth he had once fought so hard to gather. As the last bag of cowries cracked in the fire, thunder split the sky. Adaeze, who lay weakly by the shrine, gasped as though air had returned to her lungs. Her fever broke instantly, and color returned to her cheeks. The villagers shouted in awe as the chief priest lifted his staff. "The curse is broken. The gods are merciful, but they have taken their price." Obina, drenched in sweat, collapsed beside his wife. Tears streamed down his face, not of sorrow, but of relief. For the first time in moons, hope filled his heart. But though the curse had lifted, Obina now stood as a man stripped of everything. He had gained back love, but he was poorer than the day he first dreamed of Adaeze. Life after the ritual was hard. With nothing left, Obina and Adaeze returned to tilling the soil with bare hands. They lived humbly, but their love grew stronger with each passing day. Months later, Adaeze's womb stirred. When the midwife announced she was with child, the entire village erupted in astonishment. Songs of joy filled the air, for the woman once mocked as barren now carried the seed of life. Obina, though poor, felt richer than ever before. "Better to hold one child in my arms than 1,000 cowries in my barn," he whispered.
The village, once cruel in its gossip, now hailed him as a man who had faced the gods and survived. But Obinna knew the truth. He had been saved not by strength, but by surrender. Years later, as Obinna watched his children play beneath the Udala tree, he told them the story of his pride and sacrifice. Never let greed or pride blind you, he warned. True wealth is not measured in cowries or goats, but in love, peace, and family. The story of Obinna and Adaeze spread far beyond Umudike. Travelers carried it to distant villages as a tale of warning that no bride price, no matter how grand, was worth the wrath of the gods. Chief Okonkwo, Adaeze's father, died lonely and bitter, his wealth scattered and his lineage forgotten. But Obinna's humble home thrived, filled with laughter and love. And so, the curse became not just a story of doom, but a lesson carved into the heart of the people, that happiness demands sacrifice, and pride can destroy more than poverty ever could. Peace. And that brings us to the end of the Igbo bride price curse. If this story shocked, moved, or inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more powerful African village tales of love, money, happiness, and fulfillment.